Hey everybody, my name is Noel Young. I am making a game called Straycloud, as you can see from the logo on the screen here. And I have decided that I'm going to try to keep a developer log while I do that. Actually, I decided that at the start of the project, I was going to try to do it sort of every 3 months or so. But at about 16 or 17 weeks now, doing the first one, and I think that's okay. Not too far behind. Um, but I guess I kept hitting this roadblock where I was like, I just want to get this one more thing done, one more thing done. And I think that the important part is actually just to document the process. And if anybody else gets something out of it, all the better. So if you are watching this and you have any questions or comments, please feel free to direct them to me. And if you're interested, you can follow me along on social media at Noel Young Studio. I do weekly updates of game-related stuff. So anyway, yeah, like I said, I'm making this game, and it's the first game that I've attempted to make. And I'm really learning as I go. So I feel like I have all the common fears of things like, am I doing things correctly? Am I managing the scale of this at all properly? Am I taking on something too big? Am I not doing enough? All of that kind of thing. But I don't know what I don't know. So I think by thinking about it more and engaging with the process more, hopefully that'll give me some insight into what I'm doing and why I'm doing it. So for a bit of background, originally my background is in visual art, illustration and design. That's what I went to school for. I've worked as a designer and an illustrator. I have a little bit of animation experience, not a whole lot, and some experience in writing and recording music as well. In addition to that, in probably about, maybe 9 years ago, I started learning how to do web development. So for the past several years, I've worked full-time as a front-end web developer. That's what I currently do. So this project basically so far is something that I'm working on kind of 4 nights a week, and occasionally during my lunch break when I can squeeze the time in. So I hope that at some point I can get it to the point where it can be something that I can work on in a more dedicated way. For now, essentially what I'm doing is working on it, while it's still holding my interest, which it is doing intensely at the moment. And while it's still a manageable project and workload and workflow for me. Yeah, so I guess so we can stop staring at the screen. Let's start it up and I can begin walking through it. So, I guess the impetus for doing this was sort of the result of, well, one, the fact that I've always wanted to make a game, and two, timing, I guess. I've gotten to a point now where I feel like the skill levels that I have in different disciplines that I'm involved in, that I just sort of listed previously, I'm at a point of proficiency now where I think I can apply all of them and do something valuable with them. So I have the ability to, create the animations, do the music, and now also I feel like I've got hopefully anyway, the programming chops under my belt. And then the other thing was that when I looked into Game Maker Studio, I was pleasantly surprised to find that the language that it uses, GML, is really similar to JavaScript, which I write every day. So far it hasn't been too much of a struggle to kind of fit into that and get to work and figure out how to write things so that I can actually bring to life these different facets of this world, the mechanics that I want to apply to it. So anyway, here is our player character. They're a little magical being with a robe, some horns. They can run around and walk around and not do a huge amount else, to be honest. So far, a lot of the animations for things that the player character can do are sort of placeholder. But I've been trying to work on the core mechanics and just kind of get the feel of the game down, sort of get the pace and the speed of it, and let that inform what comes next. This environment is fairly well fleshed out. I feel like most of what we're seeing here will probably make it in, stay in the game in a pretty similar way to what it is now. The GUI layer, the top left, is pretty rudimentary though. You can see there's health, something under health that we don't have any of, and then little elemental symbols, which will change. Those are pretty placeholder. And I think for the most part those will be the primary systems that govern the way things work in the game world. So this here, you can see in front of us, is a spirit energy refill. So if I click on that, then the meter fills up, the energy goes away. I want to have kind of a puzzle mechanic probably tied to this, where the refill areas within an environment will not reappear until the amount of energy that they provide has been depleted. So gives me an excuse to show this off. So if I cycle through, see, I can fire sort of a spell, a little projectile, and once I do, this will refill and I can get it back again. And I think that push and pull is something that I want to focus on both mechanically and narratively throughout the game. One of the big points of inspiration for me, I feel like I got a little bit of a kind of a brain spark when last year I was playing through The Legend of Zelda: Link to the Past, which I don't think I'd played since I was, well, at the oldest I was a teenager probably. I'd played it as a kid as well, and it just really struck me how perfect it is, how all the systems work together really well. I hadn't played it in a long time. I'd played it before multiple times through, when I was younger, but it wasn't something that I played obsessively. But there was like no point at which I ever got stuck, really. Everything just kind of made sense. And so, I mean, obviously it's like it's like a first-party Nintendo, big flagship title. It's made by some of the most talented game developers there are. But you might as well try to do what the absolute best people are doing. So I take inspiration from that. And then the other game I think that I have been citing as a big influence on this is actually Shadow of the Colossus, which is a game I've only played through once, but for the way that its primary game mechanics just absolutely tie into the narrative and every aspect of the world. One of the goals that I have with this is that I don't really want to have much, if any, real combat, which probably seems counterintuitive given what I just said, but I think when I played Shadow of the Colossus, the thing that really stuck with me was that it felt to me like all of the big battles against the Colossi were all really environmental puzzles to solve. They played out as that kind of combat, but since these creatures are like so much a part of the landscape, they're kind of one and the same. I don't know exactly how that'll filter out into this, other than I think there probably will be larger, sort of guardian creatures throughout the world. But it's definitely something that I've kind of taken to heart. So, you can see that where our protagonist lives is not looking too flash right now. There is some vegetation, some flowers and things like that, but everything's a bit crumbled. Their little house is not looking very good. In addition to the time that I've spent actively programming the game so far, last year I spent several months coming up with and then making a sort of a short concept trailer for this. And in that animation, it's a sequence that may be a dream or maybe reality, where the character finds that the island that they live on has come crashing down to the ground from the sky where it had been floating previously. So without giving too much away, the narrative at the start of the game, at least the idea now, is that it sort of picks up where that left off. So anyway, let's have a look at our character's home to start with. See that it's a little bit run down. Got a bed and a table, flower pot, some stuff on the shelves, but there's some mold or moss creeping in. There's holes in the roof. You can see the light coming through. It's been raining in the bucket. This is one of the early ways I wanted to try and see how this elemental interaction might work. So we've got some spirit energy in. If we're on fire, we can point it at the fireplace and it'll light, which is nice. I think, eventually I want to develop that further so that while it's lit, there'll be smoke coming out of the chimney and that kind of thing. And then additionally, we've got a little range over here we can have a look at. Because there's also this sort of aiming mechanic, so you can hold down the trigger in order to get into this spellcasting state and then aim as you will to fire that way. But in addition to that, I want to make them the projectiles slightly homing, so that the player won't experience a lot of frustration while they're trying to use it. So you can see if I fire here, it won't go through, but if I'm a bit closer, it will hit that. And the visual part of it is not quite figured out yet. You can see it goes a bit crazy at the end when it's near it, but that's the idea. Because I think that using the spellcasting to interact with objects that have elemental interactions is something that will be focus in the game. Over here is just kind of a debug room. It's like the kitchen sink where any little bits and bobs of other ideas end up. There's something you can interact with here that will open up a dialogue with selectable options, which we won't look at because I'm not sure if it's even going to be used, but you can see very basic implementation of picking stuff up with no animations to coincide with it. This creature here is, whoops, as you can see, because I just got hurt, actually an enemy. We can hurt it as well, but I'm going to avoid it because if I remember right, it's pretty overpowered and I don't really want my character to die while I'm running this demo. In addition to that, there's the start of, and this is the thing that I'm sort of working on right now. Like, this is the thing that I was working on last week, I'll work on this week probably, is block pushing. It's not really there. I don't plan on making this just a straight up like block puzzle game, but I'm sure that they will come in handy. Having them around will be very useful for fleshing out some of the environments. This agitated looking character here is in for a sense of scale, so you can see that our character is actually quite small compared with the other people that are in their village. Potentially they're even just sort of a child, and this character doesn't do anything yet, but they will probably, well, they or someone like them will probably give like a tutorial quest at some stage. So that's it for this area. I have one more tile set, which I'll just kind of show briefly for the sake of comparison. So this is a forest area, and this is another concept that has a different piece of music to loop in the background, and the visuals are quite a bit different. So the idea with this is to show that in this world, there are going to be areas, there will be environments that are much more alive and vibrant. This isn't really fully developed yet, but there will probably be, some kind of animals in here, like maybe some birds around, or things like birds, that kind of thing. And probably some more motion in the vegetation. I really want to have like big walls hanging with vines and large ferns and things like that, kind of just planted around the place. But this is just the sort of the first draft of it, trying to create an environment using a tile set that's different to the one that I was originally working on. So yeah, that's it so far. It's amazing how quickly you can sum up the amount of work that goes into just creating these couple of things to show off. As I'm sure if anyone who's watching this who is an actually experienced game dev, they'll know far better than me. But yeah, I think that's about it for this one. If you've followed along, thanks for listening to me talk about it. If you're getting anything out of it, all the better. I think it'll be good for me. So yeah, if you're interested, please stay tuned. And like I said, if you don't already, feel free to follow Noel Young Studio on Twitter and Instagram for weekly updates. Cool. Thanks, and hope to do it again soon. All right, see ya.